I think it is a wider generational thing.
The activity was drinking, and that's what we did.
I still went to alcohol environments, just not drinking.
Honestly, I think it's going to shock a lot of people to hear this. Welcome back to The Upward Spiral, where we discover the surprising benefits of drinking less. I'm your host, Michelle O'Brien, and today we are going to be diving into the evolving relationship Gen Z has with alcohol. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We already know that Gen Z and the younger generation are drinking a lot less, but we're going to hear directly from one today. For me, I want to understand a little bit more about why they're drinking less and what they're doing instead, particularly what they're doing for fun. Joining me today is Holly Smith, a Gen Z activist and impact investing professional who has witnessed firsthand the changes in drinking culture. Welcome, Holly, to the Podster Studio. Thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yay, I'm excited. I'm also going to be really uncool on this entire podcast. So please just call out my millennialism at any time.
No. I think that will also make it a funny conversation.
I'm open to it. Before we get into the whole drinking conversation, I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about impact investing and what you do as a profession, because it was new to me when we met, and I'm fascinated. I'm really interested in what's brought you there.
Well, I feel like it's a rather not uncommon thing anymore to have just fallen into your career and your profession. So perhaps in that nature, my story is not too unique, but I have a psychology degree and I was preparing myself to go into environmental policy. I was ready to change the world through behavior change. And then I came across a fintech startup. I was looking at my own investing and money matters and wanting for it to align with my values, and there were limited options available to me. And then I found this company that was building a solution that I wanted and needed, and then this whole world of impact investing opened up to me. And it was kind of just this fantasy utopian moment where I found a line of work where I could use all my skills, I could address all the things I care about and make a difference from day one.
Yeah.
And just that's the dream.
So what is impact investing?
Yeah. So impact investing is an investment approach. So if you think about all types of investing on a scale from emphasis on finance to an emphasis on impact. And so you have traditional finance, traditional investing, which is all about making money, and it is up to the individual person whether they regard the social or environmental impact, but the priority is the money, right? And then on the other end, you would have philanthropy, essentially, which is impact only. It's not really got anything to do with making money. And then in the middle, you've got a few other different things. And that kind of umbrella is usually called sustainable investing. So you have ESG, which is a financial risk framework. You have maybe more on the impact side, like small business loans, etc., or enterprises, these kind of things. It's not about making money, but you do a little bit. And then impact investing is in the middle. It's investing in companies that are making an intentional and measurable social and environmental good whilst making financial returns.
Okay.
Perfect.
This is amazing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It can be applied in all kind of asset classes and in your personal life. I think if you can take the idea of investing as being like your time, your energy, your money, like you could take it away from a traditional finance and apply it in your broader life too. But it is hard to do. It's hard to achieve because you have to put the effort in, but it is totally possible. And I really see it as the only way to achieve like the UN 2030 agenda and to have a sustainable and thriving and equitable world. So one day it will just be the norm, you know? Yeah.
I love this and I'm so excited and I really need to sit and kind of look at my portfolio with my husband and start to really dive into more kind of the social impact side. I'm going to link down below to Holly's LinkedIn. So if anyone here wants to learn a little bit more about that, you can go reach out to Holly on LinkedIn, and I'm
definitely.
sure you'll be happy to kind of have a call, take a meeting, or anything else. So look, the reason why I brought this up quite early on in the conversation is just to get an idea of who you are as well, and kind of what your passions, your interests, and of course your profession is. But let's jump back into alcohol and drinking culture. So can you just describe your personal relationship with drinking and tell us a little bit about your story?
So I think for context, I did grow up in the UK, and I also went to university in the UK. So that has played a huge part in my relationship with not only alcohol, but with drinking being like the activity. So like most British teens, 16 to 18 range, engaged with alcohol at like house parties or bar crawls, these kind of things. I had a really wholesome friendship group at home during sixth form. We're all slowly turning 18, and had the same group that all lived in the same town. So we would go to the same places, the same pubs every time that we hung out, and everybody's parents were regulars at different pubs. So it was this really kind of family environment, safe environment as well. Nobody ever got too crazy. Half the people worked at McDonald's, so either had the morning or the night shift, and then the other half worked as lifeguards. So people always had like some of the group not really drinking that much, some of the group just coming along for the ride and then going home or going to their shift, etc. And then going to university was such a shock.
Tell everyone where you went to university.
I went to the University of Manchester,
which is my hometown. For anyone who doesn't know,
and it's a massive city. It's a student city. There's like 3 universities on one road, and I grew up in a village, and so yeah, I think in general there were a lot of challenges when I first moved to uni because of that. But UK Freshers Week is just the craziest scene. I have since then never seen interactions with alcohol like it, and I'm someone that, even though I know myself really well, I think it's important to regularly challenge my own beliefs. So because I think you can really limit your growth if you are hard and fast about what you think you know about yourself. So I was like, well, this is university. I'm here to say yes. I'm here to get the most out of it. So I bought the freshers ticket, and I went to the 4 events put on by university, and I didn't go to any other events. And it was just horrible. It was so horrible. My flatmates were really heavy drinkers. I didn't see them during the day, and that was kind of what it was like in the first year of uni altogether. It was people experimenting and exploring alcohol for the first time, but no consequences. No, in terms of like they didn't have to go back to their parents. If they didn't turn up to class, it didn't really matter. Like it's their degree they're losing out on, And I think compared to that safety net we had at home, where we all knew where each other lived, our parents were also out at the same time, there was no safety net at all, and it was quite scary to see how vulnerable people were. And I didn't like that, because I would think about my friends at other universities and how we used to always make sure each other got home, and who's making sure they got home now, and who's making sure I got home, and all of this. And it's particularly at Manchester, horrible stories about spiking and all of this kind of culture in the first few weeks. So after that, no drinking for 2 years. I did not engage in alcohol at university at all.
I just want to stop there. That is like unreal. I remember it well. I want to say I'm looking back on it fondly. I'm probably not at all, but that's just like incredible in 20 years that it's still the same that it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. There were alcohol-free events put on, but it was for the international students and the religious students. It wasn't like, oh, this is a just another option. Not when I first went there, but my degree was 4 years in total, so I definitely noticed a shift from start to finish in that respect. And even now, the people I know going to university, very, very different climate in that respect. But but I still went to alcohol environments. Yeah, just not drinking. Yeah. And that kind of from the beginning of university to the end of uni and beyond, although I was one of the first in my circles to be saying no to this, or this isn't for me, so I'm just not going to be involved, by the end, the number of conversations I'd had with my peers or peers of peers that have said, I really am questioning my relationship with alcohol, or I'm questioning, is it really worth it going out tonight? Is it what I want to do? What about the rest of my weekend plans? And saying, well, actually, this is an option. This is an option to not go, or to not go like this. More and more people feel that way and have established a better relationship now.
Yeah, I love that they're questioning that while still at uni. Yeah. It took me in a kind of 15 years post-uni to start questioning my relationship, and I was still in that cycle. Those 15 years, I had that kind of 10 years after university where I was still like in that cycle of kind of going out and drinking in the weekends and everything else. So I'm loving that you and your peers are kind of seeing it a lot, becoming more aware of it a lot sooner, I think is great. Do you think this is just you and your group of friends? I know that before you've mentioned that you're part of a group of quite high achievers. Do you think that's kind of just sitting with your group, or do you think that's kind of the wider generation?
I think it is a wider generation thing, but I do acknowledge that my peer group, the thing that bonded us together was never alcohol in the first place. Thus, it didn't form such an important part of our friendship. And we came together through volunteering in the same project. And our interests, we all had very different relationships with alcohol. And so from the start, it was never always a given that it would be present, and that any one person may or may not be drinking, and they may or may not change their mind in the night. And so that's just the foundation. And that was how we were very early on, like from 18. But at university, I had a partner, and his friendship group, big drinkers. They loved to party. They would party regularly. But even by the third year, the fourth year, they had established a very different environment where it was okay that some people wanted to stay in, and it was okay that some people didn't want to go out every weekend or these kind of things. But they'd also learned so much more about each other and the hobbies that they shared. So let's say they're a group of 10 to 15, they live in a couple houses, and one person could say, hey, I really want to play tennis this weekend. At least 2 or 3 other people will say, yeah, me too. But likewise, if they're all planning to go out, and one person says, oh, guys, I'm really thinking I'm going to stay in tonight, at least 2 or 3 other people are also going to be staying in. So that fear of missing out thing, the joy of missing out, that whole transition became clear, even in a group that bonded first with alcohol. So I think it is a wider generational thing. Not necessarily cutting alcohol out completely, but this idea of sober curious, right? Yeah. So looking at their relationship with alcohol and with drinking as an activity, drinking as a add-on activity. What is it that people are doing otherwise, and really thinking about how they can allocate their time in different ways.
This is fascinating to me, because for so long the activity was drinking, and that's what we did. It's we're not going to go to the pub and have a nice meal and play some board games. We're going to the pub to drink. The end goal was to get drunk. Yeah. And to be honest, even moving to Singapore and having the amazing champagne brunches, the goal was to go and get your money's worth out of the free flow champagne. It wasn't necessarily, and of course to enjoy all of the other food, but the goal was to drink and the activity was to drink. And so I'm really liking that kind of shift.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way that all of this ties in, especially with what I now do for work, is that Gen Z is so values-based. aligning your values with the way you do things. So, I always think about it in this framework of like, we all have power, we all have life, like in different places, different rooms. And we have 3 currencies, and that's time, energy, and money. And I think Gen Z, more than other generations perhaps, are thinking about how their behavior aligns with their values. Are you spending your time, money, and energy in ways that align with your values? At a table, we're all having dinner, and people start ordering beers, and somebody goes to automatically order a drink, and they go, actually, I don't really want to drink tonight, but I just ordered a beer anyway. That's cognitive dissonance. That's somebody immediately realizing that their behavior is not in line with their beliefs of like, it's not necessary to drink every night. I actively don't want to drink tonight, and now I've just bought a drink. And I think that's what's changing, is performing on a values-based alignment in every area of our lives. And that's why so many, not just drinking, like when it comes to smoking, when it comes to where you earn your money from, or where you invest, or what brands you buy with, Gen Z are leading with does this align with me or not? And that's kind of dictating the behavior, rather than what is society telling me to do? What do my peers think I should be doing? That kind of thing.
This is, honestly, I'm going to be really honest here. This is relatively new to me, honestly. Like, I've been learning a lot over the past few years, but to just kind of hear it maybe coming a bit more naturally is just fascinating, and my mind's blown. And I'm actually feeling really excited. I'm excited for my kids and to see if it's going to be the same for them as well. Again, do you think this is your particular upbringing, or do you think this is more collective?
I would say there's a bit of both. I think there are certain decisions or realizations that I've been able to come to easier or sooner because of my upbringing. But I'm not the only one that feels that way. So I'm 5 years into Gen Z. I think Gen Z is from 95, and I'm a 2000 baby. So there are loads more people who are after me in Gen Z that feel this way and all these kind of things. But I didn't grow up in an alcohol-heavy household. My mum never drank. I think she drank when she was younger, but as a parent, I had never seen her drink alcohol. And my dad just had casual beers and wine. And now after watching one of your other episodes about alcohol-free spirits and stuff, he regularly invests in a craft something, and increasingly it's the alcohol-free things, and really trying that out. And so that's really nice to see. Growing up, I'd always seen not drinking as an option, and my dad having a very kind of not casual, thoughtful, a conscious relationship with alcohol, that he would take time to learn about it if that's the thing that he was getting involved in, And I was thinking about this morning. Also, an adjacent behaviour, it's smoking, right? Smoking cigarettes. And I remember at school learning about safety, like alcohol safety, drug safety, smoking safety, all of this. And I came home, I was like, Dad, have you ever smoked? And my dad said, yeah, when I was younger, I tried it once. I tried it, I didn't see what the fuss was about, so I didn't do it again. And I was like, oh, that's an option as well. And that's how I felt about drinking at university. I went to Freshers Week, I went to clubbing, I tried it, I did not see what the fuss was about, so I didn't do it again.
Yeah.
And I have been sober clubbing since, which is a hilarious experience. But, I haven't been out drinking, clubbing again, really, in that way. I'd always been told there was the option of not, and I was told the option of trying it and going, nah, you're all right, thanks.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of being able to back myself in my decisions, is that I had those role models.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I've said this before on the podcast, like, I didn't know a single person that didn't drink. There wasn't a single person in my life who didn't drink. And so for me, not drinking just wasn't an option. Like, it wasn't something I was conscious of. So first of all, having those role models, but also having that confidence to be able to walk away. And I'm sure in your first year at uni, that was really hard. When all your flatmates were drinking and you said, actually after Freshers Week, this isn't for me. That must have been really difficult.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of university, it was really challenging. I mean, moving out from home, moving away from your community in general is going to be challenging. And then if the only option for making friends, making a new community is all alcohol based, and you're deciding you don't want to drink, that is going to be a challenging environment. But it was just that I was sometimes the first person they'd met that was 18, 20, whatever, that wasn't drinking, not because of religion, not because of a traumatic experience. Like I've got friends with alcoholic relatives, and that's their main driver for why they don't drink. But that's not my experience. And or being on medication, there are certain medications that really inhibit your ability to drink and these kind of things. And for me, it was just, I just don't fancy it.
Yeah.
Mind blowing for people. But I think that was just because I was the first person they had met as 18-year-olds. They didn't understand the concept, but I do have a drink now. I like a glass of wine every now and then, and it's up to me whether I do or don't. And so the people around me are happy to offer and check in, but they're not kind of confused about, I don't know when you do and don't want to drink or whatever. No, they just don't care. They don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
I'm totally seeing that changing now as well. Like, I think for every generation is that if you say no, not tonight, so many more people are just really respectful of that and go, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's not like it once was, where you would have that, oh God, you're so boring, or God, come on, just have one.
Yeah.
That just doesn't, that's becoming less and less of a thing now.
Yeah. I would say that I didn't have that kind of comment about boring as much. It was confusion.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean that you're 18 and at university and you're not drinking alcohol? And especially sober clubbing, because clubs are horrible environments, and to be sober at a club is actually quite hard to do. But again, right people who are there to just dance, and be with your friends, chat with your friends, have a good time. Whether the alcohol is involved or not, if you're with the right group of people, it's totally possible to have fun sober clubbing.
And I've done it, but you've got to I always kind of you need to be prepared. Like, you need to be wearing something comfy, flat shoes. The music needs to be amazing.
Yeah, the music.
The music has to be tunes that you just love, or that it's just, and the vibe's got to be great. The atmosphere's got to feel safe and fun, and then you got to be with the right people.
For me, the biggest thing was the right people, because especially when you're at university, or even outside of university, just that age range, there is an emphasis on trying to find someone that night and these kind of things. And if you go with a group of friends and they're all going to get drunk and then find a man to take home or something, and then you're there sober clubbing by yourself,
it's a pretty boring night for you, isn't it?
Yeah. So the intentions have to be shared about how you're going to interact with each other in the night and these kind of things. But yeah.
And do you still go for a greasy kebab at the end of the night?
I personally have never digested a kebab.
What? Oh my God! You've missed out.
Again, it doesn't align with my values.
I was trying to say, going to Abdul's in Fallowfield in Manchester at the end of the night at 3 a.m, what a sight.
I mean, I have accompanied people to many a greasy kebab and chicken and chips, but yeah.
So good times. And it's so funny, I went out for my sister's bachelorette in Manchester and we had the whole weekend, but 3 o'clock in the morning, I was the last one standing, took all the girls for a kebab, and I still had the kebab. I hadn't drank a drop all night, but I still went for the greasy kebab, and it was still amazing. So for anyone listening who worries that they're going to miss out on the things that they loved by not drinking, you can still have the greasy kebab.
You can.
Just do it. So let's talk maybe a little bit about kind of generational differences. And I know we kind of touched on it a bit kind of already during the conversation. How do you think Gen Z's relationship with alcohol maybe differs to that of previous generations?
It's just one of many things we could be doing. And when I'm thinking about the three currencies of the time, energy and money, alcohol and drinking saps from all of them. And if you think about all these things that are available to us that previously weren't, like the way we can travel in the world, the way that we're connected via social media, the fact that we know and take responsibility for the interactions that different countries have with each other and the difficulties that happen across the world. The idea of spending X amount of money, getting drunk to waste a couple, in my opinion, waste, to kind of, be tired the next day and then all this kind of stuff. And then you think about how much impact that amount of money could make to a donation to like a humanitarian cause that's happening that you know about because you are online and we are all global citizens. And because you once went to that country, because you can, because this generation is able to travel in completely different ways than even your generation could. The decisions are completely different. Like everything is put into context every time. And I think it all ties in with that like values-based thing, the not taking no for an answer or not saying business as usual for everything. I think every generation has had the issue that they have fought for, whether it's like women's rights or environmental rights, anti-war, LGBTQ, like anything. Every generation has had something that they particularly fought for. And then, of course, the fight for racial justice is just ongoing. But Gen Z have said, well, actually, the buck stops with us on everything. And that is why I think there's this perception of, like a Gen Z activist, or I mean, even the snowflake thing has trickled into our generation as well as millennials, and that you get this criticism because we're saying, well, actually, it's not good enough, and that's true for every aspect of our life. It's not good enough that we let ourselves down if we don't want to drink and we keep drinking. It's not good enough if we spend all our money somewhere when we know we could be helping others. It's not good enough when our governments let us down. This is, I think as a generation, it's just very active. Very, very active. And also alcohol's so expensive.
Before we get into the expensive, I've got goosebumps. Because it's just when you said like, look, the buck stops with us, I'm like, oh, for me, there's hope. There's actually hope that that this generation might actually start to put the world to right and, solve some of these problems that just have felt so impossible for such a long time and so infuriating for such a long time.
It's interesting because one of my least favourite things to be told as a Gen Z is that we're going to save the world. And I'll tell you why. Okay. Is because our intolerance for subpar results is a driving force, right? Like saying no, saying the buck stops with us, all of this. Of course, that is a catalyst for change. But if the oldest Gen Z are just 5 years older than me, they're not even 30 yet. So the people who work in positions of power, who hold capital, who are elected officials, are not my generation, and that change can happen now. Those policies, those investments, the speaking, the empowering, like everything, the action that could really change what is happening to our planet, to the people who live in it, to the pursuit of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We can't do that yet. Like, of course, there are high achievers, there are huge speakers who are sub 30, but ultimately, it's about championing our voices and listening to the current and future generations, but acknowledging that it's an intergenerational issue, that the people who demand change are often not the people who are in a position of power.
Yeah.
So it is all very well, but I think, the generation before you thought you guys were going to fix everything.
Probably,
and then you guys are like, oh, you lot are going to fix everything. And then Gen Z are like, oh my God, man, we're so tired from all this activism. Thank God for the next generation to pick up where we left off. But that's how nothing changes, is because you're like, oh, I'm so grateful for the societal views that are changing in the generation below me, but it is a collective thing, right?
Yeah.
The action still needs to happen with the generation that holds most of the positions of power.
So what can we do or what do you think we can do to activate millennials and Gen Z now? Because we're exhausted too. We've had enough.
Yeah. I think the two largest things that we can do right now whilst we're building our careers, whilst we're building our life's work, not just our career's work, is improve our financial and political literacy. And to really understand, like, we're always doing the inner work. We're always understanding what are our beliefs. We're encouraged all the time to think about what we think about something, especially with social media, which is like your own like journalism platform, always having a view on something. We know what we think about things, but what about where we can implement change or utilize the power that we do have to make a change in these spaces? So thinking about all sorts of things in financial literacy, the political literacy, understanding where you hold the power, and pushing the right buttons where you have the capacity, because everybody's capacity is different, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I think, and it's true for alcohol too. So even from my first year at uni to my last year, and then now, out of curiosity, over the weekend, I was thinking, I wonder what the sober campus life is like in Manchester now, and if just the number of articles that came up about sober curious events, about there's an alcohol-free bar in Manchester, and alcohol-free halls, so the student accommodation, that they're being oversubscribed, and alcohol-free zones like on the campus.
Oh my God,
Do you know what I mean?
I love that.
That's
I love
6
that for
years.
Manchester. I think that's great. And Manchester's just a city that's so full of culture and life and art, and just has the best energy in the whole world. And, you know, to hear that that's happening now, because it has historically had a big kind of drinking culture. To hear that that's happening is just so heartwarming for my hometown. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. Let's talk a little bit about money, because you've mentioned that a couple of times. Like, God, I just don't want to waste the money, and how infuriating that is. When, you know, and again, I kind of showed the 20-year age gap now, is that when I first started going out, when I was kind of 16, 17, for any of my friends listening, we used to go to Elemental, this amazing bar when I was 16, and it was Plastic Population, I Love the 80s, even though we were kind of 90s kids, but it was 80s music and it was brilliant. And it was girls paid £5 in and drank free all night, and boys got free entry, but every drink was £1. So it was like shockingly cheap to drink. What's it like now? And, you know, you've talked a little bit about kind of wasting money. I know alcohol's a lot more expensive, but tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, alcohol is really expensive. I couldn't quote you bottle prices and these kind of things, but just thinking about, I know we shouldn't always monetize everything, but like if you think about dollars or pounds per hour that you spend on an evening activity that involves alcohol, it's just like, that's how I think about my time sometimes, like all my experiences. I'm paying for a 2-hour workshop in this type of thing that costs this much, and my friends might have gone on a night out and it cost them this much, and even though they had fun for this many hours, they're actually wiped out for this many hours too. And that's unproductivity or lack of productivity as well. And so I'm thinking of all the different types of ways that we're losing out in that way.
So it's not just financial. The finance is one of the big parts of it, like the sheer cost of the alcohol, but it's time as well.
Yeah. And even with the cost of the alcohol, you might make decisions at the start, which, like, I'll only spend this much, I'll only have this many drinks, I can't really afford blah, 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 blah. But your decision making is affected the more alcohol you drink. And that is how people wake up the next day and they're like, I do not know how over £100 went. And the same with like entry requirements for different bars or clubs or nights out and these kind of things. It really adds up. And something that I find irritating is when people will say, I don't have enough money to. And then they describe something that really aligns with their values, is a personal goal of theirs, and is something that will benefit them infinitely. Example, a travel experience, a workshop, investing in a language app, like a language learning app, something that really they care a lot about, and yet they buy beers all the time, like really casually, and spend huge sums of money on like a one night experience. And especially if they drink so much they can't remember, I'm wondering, you know, because I do understand that some people enjoy the way they feel when they drink. And I do understand that there are some really cool experiences that also have alcohol involved. Like a concert is great, and if you drank as well, then you'll associate the two together. You still had an amazing time, all of this. I understand that not everybody has a horrible experience when they're drinking. But if your bigger, more important goals are being taken away from by the relationship that you have with drinking, then that's what the problem is. So I find it really frustrating when I speak to friends that say they don't have enough money for this thing that is so important to them, that they, you know, have, that's going to really benefit them, and then they're just drinking all the time.
Yeah.
I find that hard to hear.
For 10 years, I was like, oh, I really want to run a marathon. And it wasn't even necessarily the money. It was the time and the energy.
Yeah.
Like if I was drinking once or twice a week and then feeling rotten for a day afterwards, I didn't have the time or the energy to train for a marathon, to commit myself to it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I stopped drinking that I was like, I can do this now.
And even when it is cheap, right? So for I've been based in South and Southeast Asia for the last year, so where the cost of things are quite a lot cheaper than in the UK, and I have met other British people traveling there, and they will still drink a lot because they're on holiday or they're traveling, or it's so cheap, it's only X many p or pounds. And I'm thinking they might consume many beers, or beers and wine is easier to say than cocktails, but just, you know, alcohol. And I think about the equivalent of what they spent in one night is actually 3 nights stay for me.
Yeah.
And then people are like, how could you have traveled for so long? How can you have unstable income for so long? It's because I got my priorities right. I know what I want to achieve and where I want to go and what I want to see, and I spend accordingly.
Yeah.
Whereas these people, and if what they want is to spend on the alcohol, then that's fine. But if the next day I'm hearing them speak about how, oh, you know, I wish I could stay in this place for longer, but I just can't afford it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, last night you drank a week's worth of accommodation.
Yeah.
What?
I think that's happening across the board. I think that's happening for all generations. I don't think that's just Gen Z, but I think these kind of values that you keep talking about, the money, the time, the energy is a really simple, really beautiful way of looking at it, and really refreshing to hear as well. Let's talk a little bit about social media. So I've got this kind of hypothesis that Gen Z have seen millennials drunk on social media, posting drunk photos, falling out of bars, behaving in just ghastly ways, to be honest, and probably have looked at that on social media and gone, first of all, hell no, I don't want to look like that, I don't want to act like that, but I don't want any of that captured on camera and shared on social media. And maybe that's kind of one of the reasons why the drinking culture is a little bit different. What do you think? Am I right here, or?
I think there is a little bit there, but I wouldn't say it's a direct, look what they did, ill gross, could not be me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it this way, because the major social medias now came in when I was about 13, 14, I think. So we were in our teen years, your worst, most embarrassing years, and it was online. We were saying all these embarrassing things online. We posted pictures of ourselves, and then kind of had this horrible awakening when you were older about, what did I say, like things coming up. And it's not the same as people, you know, losing their jobs because they said something in the past, just like things that make you cringe, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of regret. But there was still this kind of boastful behavior of being at a party, being at a club, showing that you're out and about, because that's where the social value was placed, was you were cool enough or you were sociable enough that you were being invited to all these things. And that was definitely true for 16 to 18 for sure for me, because that when in your adolescence, social capital is everything. And what you want to achieve in your life, nobody really cares at all. But what you mean to your peers, that's a huge part of your identity. And as you come into your young adulthood and your 18 to 30 range, it's about who you are going to be as an adult. You're forming and growing and really developing your sense of self that will largely form who you are for the rest of your life, really. So all that gross growing that you were doing before is now captured online. So I think there is this shift from where that social capital plays a role into what it is, what is important to be seen doing. And there was a shift from publicly displaying, getting drunk, going to parties, all these kind of things, and a shift into this world of private accounts. So everybody had their public-facing social media, and then they had a private one, whether it was on Instagram or Snapchat or something, where they would post all their really ugly photos, or their being drunk and their bum is out, like those kind of photos for their close peers, because those are the people they trusted and this kind of thing, and those are the people who were already there that night anyway. So creating this really closed environment once again, as if social media was never there, because the people you're sharing it with are the people who were there in the first place. So it's I will also say I quit social media at 18. So so I was never on TikTok, never on Twitter. I have Facebook because it works across generation and geography. Snapchat I barely used. Again, I enjoyed the face element because it was more personal than texting, but got rid of that as well. So again, values based. It wasn't good for me, so I wasn't on it anymore. And similar conversations around when you first quit alcohol, when you first quit smoking, and when you first quit social media, people being like, what? You're Gen Z and you're not on social media? But now it's not a big deal. People are not surprised. I think geography-based, people get more and less surprised based on the platform that you are and aren't on. But overall, generationally, people are just not surprised that Gen Z are quitting social media or changing their relationship with it. Yeah. I've got friends that only have Instagram on their laptop, never on their phone. Yeah. So they only use it to check in with friends, see what people have posted. They've got friends that have gone traveling or have moved to another country, and they want to have a look at that and then ask them specifically about something rather than just saying, hey, how's Singapore? What a broad question, right? But yeah, no, it's across the board.
I think it's going to shock a lot of people to hear this, to hear that, really coming off, a lot of kind of people are coming off, a lot of Gen Z are coming off social media for the reasons that you said.
Or at least limiting. Yeah. It really helps with, I don't know if all phones do this, but definitely iPhones where you can set timers on different apps, social media apps, usage, this kind of stuff. Yeah. The ability to be friends with but unfollow. So even if you want to remain on social media, you can super tailor your experience, even though you are still a slave to the algorithms. Yeah. Like you can have more control and curate your own experience online. So it is being supported as well. Likewise with the alcohol industry, more alcohol-free options becoming available, more events not centered around alcohol are available. The demand for it and the supply for it are growing together. And it's the same for all those movements.
Yeah, hopeful, like for my kids as well. And it's something that we're really trying to get off our phones. Trying to especially kind of when we're around the kids, and it's very hard because it is very much an addiction. But to hear that maybe they might not be as interested, they might be choosing quite early on, okay, actually this isn't for me and this is a waste of my time and waste of my energy, therefore I'm going to focus my time and energy on something that truly matters to me, is hopeful.
Yeah.
Hopeful? I don't think that's why I was saying it, but.
And it's not to say that there isn't a range, right? Like there is still a range. There'll be people who in Gen Z who do not recognize anything that I'm saying and are still living a similar life as you described, as millennials do. And then there'll also be people who are like sober free, never touched alcohol, never will, hardliners, and then people who fluctuate in the middle. And that's true always. It's true of like vegetarianism, veganism, like all of those. I think about the fact I'm one of 4, and there's an 8-year difference between me at the top and my sister at the bottom. Yeah. And so we've all grown up in rapidly changing environments when it comes to alcohol, social media, the attitudes around different things, like even like mental health, for example, has changed a lot from when I was a teen versus my sister, who's going to be 16 soon. Very different. So I do acknowledge that being at opposite ends of the same generation, we have experienced things hugely differently, but I think overall, way more sober curious.
Oh, yes. Okay, so future of drinking culture. So, based on the current trends, like how do you envision drinking culture evolving in the future?
Yeah, I definitely see a progression, given the business perspective, given that there are so many more commercial opportunities for alcohol-free business concepts, food and beverage companies, even in bars and things like that. It's not just one option anymore, it's multiple. And not just mocktails, which you have to pay a fortune for, and it's just juice and lemonade. Actual things that taste nice. And are also not super bad for you in the terms of like sugar and that kind of thing. Oh yeah. Because I also didn't drink fizzy drinks, so so that was another challenge trying to be.
I have never been a fizzy drink drinker. I've never been into sodas. Even as a kid, I was like a very strange kid that didn't like McDonald's and didn't like soft drinks.
I would eat carrot sticks and cucumber at the parties instead of all the crisps and chocolates.
Oh no, it's definitely got the sweet tooth. I'm like, I was definitely in there with the cake, but yeah, and so it's not something that I've ever drank. But I used to drink soft drinks when I drank alcohol. That was the only
exactly.
time.
Oh my gosh, I was the same. And then when I stopped drinking alcohol, I was like, I was only using them for mixers anyway. Yeah. And I don't like the way it makes my body feel, and I worry about my teeth, etc. So, anyway, so from a business perspective, commercial perspective, growing industry for sure. And I think it's going to be one of those ones where once it becomes a business issue to not provide alcohol-free options, they'll jump right on it.
That's happening.
It happened with already. Vegetarian, plant-based, this kind of stuff. You can't just have a veggie curry on the menu or margarita pizza. Yeah, like you needed more than that. And then so it was a profit issue. As soon as you make something a profit issue, businesses will come flocking. They will make a change. That is like the biggest part of financial activism is make it a pain point of businesses to address your values. So I think that's definitely true. I think the trend of sober curious is just going to increase, and facilitating it too. Because I think there was a rise of normal activities but boozy. And I think now it's normal activities that we added the booze to, and now just taking them back out again and finding a different way to make them funky and marketable and, stand out in their market, because the way they could stand out was by making it like in Manchester there's Junkyard Golf, which is you can have cocktails and play crazy mini golf, but Junkyard Golf itself is an incredible concept because everything's made out of scrap material. They've got really funky themes. There's like neon lights, this kind of stuff. And it's pretty affordable too as a fun activity. So if they removed the booze, they would definitely still be unique in their market.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing as well, like, so just kind of coming back to the businesses, I think it's down to kind of employees and, to demand more, to say, okay, actually, you know what, if you're going to be hosting a works Christmas party, there needs to be sophisticated non-alcoholic alternatives. There needs to be a vegetarian option and so on. It's not even necessarily about saying, okay, the Christmas party is going to go alcohol free. It's just about making sure it's included. and that there's a decent choice. You know, you wouldn't just put one like wine on for an event. You'd put a selection so people have got choice. And again, it comes down to that. If you're not drinking, we've got amazing products for you. And the activity is inclusive for you. It's going to be interesting. It's not just going to be stood around watching people drink.
Yeah.
It's just kind of one example. And I think we're seeing that a lot more here in Singapore as well, is that a lot more companies are, for any of their events, are putting on non-alcoholic alternatives.
And thinking about who's going to utilize that. Because same with vegetarian, I think this is, it's a catering example. Vegetarian is a great comparison. So it's not only vegetarians that will eat vegetarian food, but it is only non-vegetarians that will eat non-vegetarian food. So it's not only sober people or sober curious people who will drink non-alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
It is also people who drink alcohol that can drink that, but not the other way around. So catering for it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like from an expenditure point of view as well, that this is an option that everybody can have, and this is an option that only the people who drink alcohol can have. Even if majority drink alcohol, still the amount you'll have left at the end, the number of people who are sober curious or people who are like, oh, I just don't really fancy drinking tonight. Well, you bought for the head count of drinkers. So you've now essentially forced a situation where somebody who might not be wanting to drink, or you know, these kind of things. And
exactly. And so we've seen some data recently that out of the non-alcoholic alternatives that people are drinking, 15% are abstainers. So 85% of the people who are drinking non-alcoholic alternatives still drink alcohol on other occasions. And I think, you know, there's a percentage of that are what you call blenders. So people who will maybe start with an alcoholic wine and then move to non-alcoholic, or they might alternate throughout the night. You've then got kind of trialers, so people who are like experimenting and trying. And then you've got people who are just not drinking on that one occasion, but they might drink a few weeks later. And so, you know, this kind of idea that you're only providing a non-alcoholic alternative for people who don't drink is just, it's not correct. You know, you're providing a non-alcoholic alternative, or a selection of non-alcoholic alternatives for everybody. And I think that's really interesting. And again, it's just really shifting the way they're thinking about it, particularly kind of those in hospitality.
Yeah.
The question that I get asked all the time when I say, oh, I don't drink, first of all, you kind of get that glazed look of what, really, why? But, well, what do you do for fun instead?
I would say we've got two categories. There are things that typically involve alcohol that I just continue to do without the alcohol. And then there's the things that you could be doing anyway. I was doing anyway. But now that I don't drink as much and I only drink a little bit irregularly, I have way more time for, and I achieve way more in those things. So I have been to alcohol-centric events, or things where people would typically involve alcohol and they've forgotten that it's optional. So I just think concerts, for example. Festivals, yeah. Or going for dinner, or the other night I went to play pool and I didn't drink, but the person I went with did have a drink, and that was fine. Those kind of activities. I have been to bars to socialise. I've been to networking drinks and I've not drunk there either. And that's a social environment where people feel like, oh, I must have a drink because we called it networking drinks.
Yeah.
Or celebratory drinks, like anytime you call it that category, I know that I may or may not actually get involved in that side of things. Again, being clubbing, we covered about the caveats when it comes to clubbing and things like that. But then just all the things that I have achieved in my like adult life, all the things that I did at university, all the things that I've done since. There's absolutely no way I would have been able to do those if I was drinking regularly. I wouldn't have had the time, energy, or money to have done those things to the standard that I did in the, like, at the age that I did, you know, all these things. So I'm big on volunteering, really, really big. At university, I launched and scaled a zero waste shop.
Awesome.
That is still on campus. And that was like a full-time job running that. You know, that's where I met most of my friends. So we had that thing that joined us together, right? And it won awards, and it still runs today. And I did that alongside my degree. I also had 2 part-time jobs. I also maintained a relationship, and I volunteered as a scout leader, both in Manchester and at home. Plus all these other random things. And often a leadership role, you know, not even like I do this thing 1 hour a week. I was doing it way more than 1 hour a week. If I had been even getting drunk once a week or once a month, that's the whole weekend wiped out. Yeah. And I'm not going to achieve everything that I want to achieve. And I got good grades. So it's not even like I was doing these things to the sacrifice of something. You know, I was living my life based on the things that were important to me. And I still do that, the way that I travel or the way that I work or the things that I read, the fact that I have time to read. Yeah. You can't read when you're in the state of a vegetable because you went out last night. The quality of your time and in and around a drinking activity is my mum always says this about me, that there's never enough hours in the day for me. So do you think I'm going to give them to drinking? Yeah. No.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's just, there are things that I do for fun that other people would do with alcohol. And actually I challenge them to try it without alcohol. Yeah. And then just think about everything else you do with your time. You can do more of it.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's just also about that mental and physical availability. You've got that availability to pursue other kind of passions and interests. And yeah. Holly, thank you so much for talking to me. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on this subject before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered most of the basis.
I have loved this conversation. I'm going to be walking away with so many insights on it, and I think even just starting for myself to talk about kind of that money, time, and energy, and you know, where should I be where do I want to be putting that? I think that's even just trying to kind of look at anything with that lens, and it doesn't just come down to drinking. It can also be with work and trying to start a business and everything else. Does this align with those values? I've learned something, and I'm going to take that with me.
Nice.
So look, really, thank you so much. One final question. So this podcast is relatively new. I think this is episode 10, which is great. I'm finally in double digits. Who do you think I should invite onto the podcast? Is there anyone that you can think of at the top of your head, either kind of in the non-alc space, or someone who's a non-drinker or not, or someone who's just got a really interesting story?
Yes, I think the alcohol-free bar I mentioned in Manchester, I think it was a pop-up in September, October 23, and they're looking for a permanent space because it went so well. And I believe the guy that runs that is called Carl, and the bar was called Love From. But there's the Mank and the Tab have done plenty of articles, so you can definitely find that online. But also anybody that is, I think it's really important to discuss university culture and also that interaction with sports culture. So particularly like, you know, rugby, football, where drinking is a huge part of it, and also where those two worlds collide. So perhaps somebody that is that works in universities or works on a campaign. How is it that the London Metropolitan University, St Andrews, University of Manchester, among others, those are the first in the, if you search Sober Curious Campus, for example, those are the universities that come up having done something. St Andrews was the one that had oversubscribed sober halls, or alcohol-free halls. Yeah, speaking to somebody who is in that and about the relationship between student demand, generational demand, and policy, and the interaction amongst that with behaviour change.
Amazing.
That would be cool.
For sure. I'm definitely going to start reaching out to some because it's such an interesting topic. Thank you so much. I'm going to link down below to Holly's LinkedIn, not her socials because she doesn't have any. But please reach out to Holly with like any questions. You want to hear a little bit more about
Impact investing.
Impact investing. That's it.
Financial activism, anything about what you care about and how to make a change with the power that you have, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. And to all of our listeners that are still here, thank you so much. I'm really trying to build a community of people who are sober curious, people who are looking to drink a little bit less. And this is hopefully a really good starting place. Please comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see more of. I'd really, really like to hear from you. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.